What if I told you that the United States, the world's richest country, the global financial superpower, began with zero debt, then spent 250 years building the largest debt pile in human history? And here's the mystery no one wants to touch. If the US controls the world's reserve currency, then how did it lose control of its own balance sheet? Because somewhere between the Revolutionary War and today's $38 trillion mountain, something broke. A system designed to guarantee stability started guaranteeing crises. And tonight, we're going to uncover why. Background plus tension. To understand how America went from debt-free to debt-dependent, we need to rewind not to 2008, not to World War II, not even to the Great Depression. We have to go back to a time when the US wasn't a superpower at all. A time when the country was young, broke, fragile, and unsure it would even survive. Because the story of American debt isn't simply about numbers. It's about wars, ambition, political fights, collapsing systems, and the hidden, unintended consequences that slowly created a debt machine that can't be turned off. And here's the twist most people never hear. Every time America tried to fix the debt, it accidentally made the problem bigger. Origins. The birth of American debt. Our story begins in 1776. Debt level $0 gives $75 million the moment the U.S. declared independence. It also declared something else: war debt. The Continental Congress had no ability to tax, so it borrowed heavily from France. The Netherlands' private American creditors. By the time the war was won, the new nation was drowning in bills. Enter the first key figure of our story, Alexander Hamilton. Hamilton believed that debt wasn't a burden, but a tool. He famously argued that a national debt, if not excessive, will be a national blessing. So in 1790, he did something revolutionary. He federalized all state debts and consolidated them into one national account, creating the first official U.S. national debt. It was a bold plan designed to strengthen the country, but it also planted the seed for a system built on permanent borrowing. The rise, wars, booms, busts. From here, American debt followed a predictable pattern. Every crisis pushed it higher. Every recovery pushed it lower. Until it didn't. War of 1812 gives massive spike. The U.S. had to borrow heavily again. 1828 to 1835 gives the only time the U.S. paid off its debt. President Andrew Jackson fiercely anti-bank attacked the national debt like a personal enemy. By January 1835, the United States owed $0. This is the first and last time in American history that ever happened. But here's the shocking twist. The moment the country was debt-free, the economy state speculation surged. Land prices inflated, and by 1837, the U.S. plunged into crisis again. The economy had become dependent on federal borrowing. The machine couldn't operate without it. Civil War, debt explodes. Debt level $65 million gives $2.7 billion. War is expensive, and the Civil War was a financial earthquake. To fund it, the government created the first income tax, widely used federal paper, money greenbacks. Debt skyrocketed. And after the war, America didn't return to $0. It kept climbing slowly, but consistently. Breaking point, the Great Depression and World War II. By 1929, U.S. debt sat around $17 billion. High, but manageable. Then came the Great Depression, and America shifted into a brand new financial era. Roosevelt's New Deal introduced large-scale government spending, social programs. Economic intervention. Debt climbed sharply, but nothing compared to what was coming. World War II, the true explosion. Debt level $50 billion gives $260 billion. This was the moment the U.S. economy transformed permanently. The war required unprecedented borrowing. Factories ran non-stop. The government issued mountains of bonds. But here is the hidden turning point most people miss. After the war, debt never returned to pre-war levels. It became permanent, and the world accepted the new U.S. financial order. Because in 1944, at Bretton Woods, the U.S. dollar became the global reserve currency. This gave the U.S. a new, powerful ability borrow infinitely, without collapsing, at least for a time. The modern machine, 1971, oil shock, and the infinite money era. Our next breaking point comes from President Richard Nixon, 1971. The dollar leaves gold. Nixon ended the gold standard, meaning dollars were no longer tied to any physical asset. This changed everything. After 1971, money could be created freely, borrowing carried fewer limits. Debt became the primary fuel for economic growth. Then came the 1973 oil crisis, skyrocketing energy prices, and a government forced to borrow even more. America entered a new era. Debt was no longer a tool. It was a foundation. Falling dominoes, 1980s to 2008, 1980s. Reagan-era tax cuts plus military expansion equals debt. Accelerates again, 1990s, balanced budgets with a hidden catch. Yes, the U.S. slowed debt growth under Clinton, but these years also saw exploding corporate borrowing, rising household debt, financial deregulation. The economy was becoming a credit engine. 2001 to 2008, war on terror plus housing bubble, 2 wars plus tax cuts plus financial crisis equals debt surges, past $10 trillion for the first time in history. The point of nitrogen monoxide return. 2008 gives today, 2008 crash gives. The Federal Reserve becomes the main character. The U.S. government and the Federal Reserve launched massive bailouts and stimulus packages. This was the moment the U.S. economy shifted from market-driven gives government-supported debt, jumped to $15 trillion. But the real explosion came after 2020. Pandemic spending gives a historic vertical spike. The U.S. spent more money in 2 years than an entire decade's combined. Stimulus checks, unemployment programs, corporate rescues, state bailouts. Debt rocketed past $30 trillion. And now, in 2025, we stand at around $38 trillion. The highest debt ever recorded by any country in world history. Failed fixes why the debt never stops growing. Here's the mystery revealed. Every attempt to reduce debt backfires because America's financial system depends on constant borrowing. Why? Reason 1. The U.S. economy grows through credit, no debt equals no expansion. Reason 2. Politicians can't cut spending without losing elections. Voters punish austerity. Reason 3. The U.S. dollar is used worldwide. Foreign nations buy U.S. debt as a safe asset. Reason 4. Interest payments have become a budget monster. The U.S. now spends more on interest than on defense. Fixing the system would require sacrifices no politician is willing to implement. Modern parallels is history repeating. Look at the patterns. Pattern 1. Wars cause debt, spikes revolution. Civil war. Iraq, Afghanistan gives Ukraine. Israel support. Pattern to crises lead to permanent borrowing. Great Depression. .com crash. 2008 pandemic. Pattern 3. Temporary spending becomes permanent. Once a program is introduced, it never disappears. Pattern 4. Debt never fully declines. Only slows before exploding again, just like the 1830s, when the U.S. paid down its debt, only to face an even bigger crisis afterward. The past is repeating only on a much larger scale. 3 takeaways. Takeaway number 1. U.S. debt began as a necessity but evolved into a permanent engine behind the entire economy. Takeaway number 2. Every major spike came from crisis or warrant each time. The new normal became higher debt. Takeaway number 3. The system now depends on borrowing so deeply that reversing course could cause a collapse. So, the real question is this. Is $38 trillion the limit, or just another milestone on the way to an even bigger breaking point? History suggests one thing. Every empire believes it's unstoppable until the moment it isn't. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. Because the more people understand the system, the less power it has to surprise us.